a wonderful time. You know, God has been moving. God has been healing people in the prayer service, and God has been providing for the needs, physical, spiritual, emotional needs. And so we just invite you to come. And then also we have our Wednesday night Bible studies. That is pretty much like a family night where you can bring your kids. Also, we have for the missionettes or the girls club, and then also for the Royal Rangers. And the girls club starts at 7, and the Royal Rangers starts at 6:30. So bring your family. We have also we have a short time of prayer, and then we have Bible study, and then don't forget the Isaiah Project. Friday nights from 4 to 6, we have the Isaiah Project going on. So you know, invite some kids. Some neighborhood kids that you guys know of that need this project, that needs to be ministered to. Make sure that you're letting people know what God is doing in your church. Thank you. And I think Pastor said that.
Can I see that bulletin? It's yeah, and bring home. You know, it's funny, we were printing out, we had the schedule of service already written out, and guess what, the printer didn't want to work. So now it's kind of like playing handoff. What you guys may have not known is that my wife actually did PowerPoint this morning. Good job. Very good job, actually, very good job. You know, I'm glad that the Lord sent us here to this church, because you know, there's been things that we have known, and we put what God has given to us as talents, and I see that every talent that God has placed within me and my wife's life, it's in effect here. There's always been an opportunity to show that we know how to do the soundboard, that we know how to do easy worship, and just a few other things. So we're just really glad that God is able to utilize us in any way possible. Have a few special announcements. First of all, is there anybody here visiting for the first time? No new visitors? Hey, we got a new visitor. Hi. We have a gift for you, and we're glad you're here today.
Amen. Amen.
Well, I got a few special announcements regarding the Harvest Time yard sale. Is going to be October 13th. This will help, the money that will be raised from this fundraiser will be going to the Harvest Time Ministry, and it will be used to feed the hungry in the community. Please bring gently used items, sellable items, on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, which would be October 10th, 11th, and 12th. If you have any questions, or would you like more information, you can go ahead and talk to Leticia, and she can go ahead and do that. Yes.
We also are going to be needing people to help us out. Obviously, if one person heads it up, if they don't do the work, we just tell people what to do. So I need those people. I need some people that really just want to come and help on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and Saturday. You can do one day, you can do all days. We do 3 hours. You know, it takes all of us together to be able to actually make this a successful yard sale. And it's really a sad situation when 3 or 4 or 5 women work and they are just awful tired, and you know, other people could have come and volunteered for a little bit. Lunch will be provided all 3 days, so if you come and you stay here, don't worry about lunch, we'll take care of it. Well, actually all 4 days. So just please come and help. If you're going to be here on any of those days, let Sheila or myself know. That way we will making sure that we have enough lunch for everybody. But please, and if anybody wants to donate something and they cannot bring it, you know, if you have way too much to donate in your car, you know, a little car, I'm going to have a couple of gentlemen that we're going to be able to go out there up things if it becomes too much of an issue for you doing it yourself. So, please clean out your closets so you guys can go buy more stuff. Okay? Clean out your garages because we really want to have a successful yard sale.
Amen. You know, it's funny that she says about getting help on Saturday. People might just be thinking that we're giving stuff away. So we definitely need your guys' help there so we can make sure that people understand that it's a yard sale, not a giveaway. Another thing I wanted to mention was we had that fundraiser last weekend, and I tell you what, you guys did a tremendous job on blessing the church. It was amazing. We never even thought that we were going to bring in that amount of money, and it was almost or about $300. So Joe Castillo used to attend here, and he ended up blessing us. And you're going to mention to him how much we ended up receiving? Thank you. So we are very, very grateful for that and your contributions for that day. That foyer is going to look wonderful. Also, my wife has an announcement regarding a certain event that's going to be taking place for the ladies.
So, very quickly, and I know that Linda knows more about it, but it's for the Christmas tea dinner in December at Madero Rancho. So that's $15 a person. So ladies, if you're interested, please get the money as soon as possible to Linda because we need to reserve the tables. And so we kind of drag our feet, then we're going to end up way in the back. And we want to be in the front. So do you have a deadline on when we should give the money or?
As soon as possible.
Okay, just as soon as possible. It's $15 and we don't want to, we don't want to end up in the back. We want to get a good seat so that we're able to, benefit from what they have that evening, okay?
And another announcement is that my wife is going to be the director of the women's ministry.
Well, I know one thing is that, God is already speaking to me, and He's already given me some things that we want to do, and that we're going to do, and so I just look forward to getting to know you ladies, and look forward to having you also, give me some input and some insight too, because I know that you've been here longer than I have, but I know that God has some good plans for us in the future. So I just, want to say that I'm here, so.
So what? She actually also took on another assignment too. She's going to be directing the readers department as well, which would be hospitality department. Yeah. So she's going to be in charge of that as well too. So it's going to be a tremendous blessing to this church. Let's go ahead and stretch out our hands to my wife. Let's just go ahead and pray for her. This is a ministry. This is a ministry, folks. It's a local ministry. Father, I thank you, God, for my wife, God, and I thank you, God, for her servant's heart, God. And I just pray, God, that Lord, your mighty hand, God, will rest upon her, Father, God. I pray, God, that you would be able to send the right woman, God, that she needs in her life, God, to be able to make the decisions, God, to serve the women here, God, but also the women that show up as well, Father God. Lord God, I pray that you would advance the kingdom through her, God. I pray that you would give her a vision, God, for this world, God, to make an impact for your glory. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay, so now we are going to be we don't take offerings here. We receive offerings.
Amen.
Brother Pablo?
Good morning.
Good morning.
We just had a major breakthrough on electing a senator. Judge Kavanaugh. And it's important that we keep praying. They will try to overturn it. We're going to elect more Republicans, senators, into office so we can keep it strong. And we have a good chance of overturning Roe versus Wade, which is abortion. And so we need to concentrating on that. We can't let off. So try to get your family members to, vote for Republicans so that we can be sure that the seats will be needed to protect it. The decision is going to come up pretty soon. So pray on that, and thank you for praying throughout the week. And God bless America.
Amen.
The Bible says that we should pray for all leaders at all times.
Amen.
We are responsible to pray for our leaders.
Yes.
Either if they're liberals,
Yes.
Democrats, or Republicans.
Yes.
Because they have been selected by God, although they might not act like, as much as we disagree with them, they were selected by God for that position. Because no position has been given up to them except by God himself.
Yes.
So I would challenge you, pray for your government.
Yes.
Pray for your government. I've heard a man say a few years ago, actually a pastor say this to his church years ago. He says, do you like how things are going on in the White House? He says, no. Okay. Then are you praying? No. Are you voting? No. Well, do your part as a citizen of heaven. Pray for your people. Pray for your leaders. And do your do your duty as a citizen of the United States. And vote for your leaders.
Yes. Amen.
We're going to be receiving offering, but today, before we receive offering, I ended up hearing another testimony of God's healing.
Yes.
You ended up getting healed by God, right? I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but there's just some testimonies that we just can't pass up, and healing is not. Healing is one of them we can't pass up. So, what took place?
Well, I have macular degeneration in one eye, and that's not something that can be reversed. And I went to a retina specialist here in town, and I had been to him about 6 months ago. And they examined my eye and says there is a slight improvement. So,
So what's going on in her eye is that the doctors say your eye is going to get worse over time. But when she went to the doctor examined it, he realized that it's getting better.
Praise God.
And who's the only one that can do that?
God.
God himself. That is right. Only God can do that. On Monday nights, we hold a prayer night. And there was one thing that the Lord ended up giving me a word, and it was for this church. And it said, it's a new season of freedom, long-awaited freedom, and liberty to live and to walk as children of God, and with the authority of from God's kingdom. Now, when God's kingdom is present, people get healed.
Yes.
People get delivered. People get set free. And to be able to hear that testimony, that's amazing.
Amen.
That shows that God's kingdom is here. And one thing I know about God's kingdom is that every need is going to be provided in God's
Praise
kingdom.
God.
I
Amen.
know that.
Amen.
One thing we're having a little issue with, Jerry Kanister is not here this morning. So, Brother Keith, could you help us out with the offering, please? Gather up, maybe about 3 people. We have the offering. We have the offering bags right behind that door. It's nice to see you, Keith, by the way.
Yes. Amen.
It's nice to see you. Yeah. So, that's just something that the Lord wanted me to share with you guys. That God's kingdom is present. There's never going to be anything lacking in the kingdom of God. And I just always ask God over anything, God, I want you to be the person. I want to be the person that this church needs. And God, I need your help. There's nobody else's help that I need except God, and I need His help tremendously, more than you think. Let's go ahead and pray. Go ahead and come up to the front, guys. Father, we thank you so much for the mighty things you're doing in this place, God. Lord, you're moving, and your kingdom is evident in this place. And I just pray, God, as the people give today, Father God, that you would bless them. God, as they sow into your kingdom, Father God, I pray, God, that you would sow into theirs. God, that you would rebuke the devourer on their behalf, God, as they put you first in their giving, God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you, Usher. So today I'm going to be speaking to you in the book of Judges one more time. I know we've been in the book of Judges for a while, but there's nothing wrong with being in the book of Judges because it's still the Word of God, amen? Amen. So today I'm going to talk to you about the art of war. One thing I realize about war is that there's always certain things that every war has. And today we're going to be examining those three things that took place in the war, in this story, because there was a war in the book of Judges. Thank you. Kids, you are released to kids church. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. And please pray for your pastors to remember that there's kids church. Okay. So there's going to be a few things that we're going to be talking about regarding the art of war. Let's go ahead and open up in prayer. Father, I just pray, God, that today, God, you would visit us today. God, that your word, God, would come out clear and understanding, Father God. I pray, God, that there would be truth, God, that is spoken, God, and also truth that is received. I pray, God, that you would open up our hearts and our minds, God, to receive exactly what you have for us today. In Jesus' name, we pray. So today we're going to be talking about the art of war. We're going to be looking over the story of Abimelech. And he was the kind of ruler that people didn't expect him to be. Today we're going to look at certain things that he did and that took place that caused him to start a war against his own people he was supposed to lead. A few weeks ago we saw how he ended up killing the leaders and setting them on fire alive as they ran for shelter in a tower. Today we're going to see what caused him to do that thing, that evil thing. He was supposed to protect the people, he was supposed to lead them, but instead he ended up doing unimaginable trouble to the people. One thing we need to know about the war, the art of war, is that every war, let's go ahead. Is it working? You know, I'm not surprised that all this stuff's taking place. I'm really not. Because the kind of, there's certain things that you know that God wants to say, and the devil just doesn't like it. So, I'll just go ahead and just take this moment to say, if it comes off a little straightforward, just know that it's nothing personal. Pastor's just passionate about this stuff. And he hates the devil with his guts. With his guts. So, let's go ahead and try it now. Hey, thank you, Josh. Thank you. Okay, so we have to remember that every war starts with words. This scripture up here says, one day Gal, the son of Ebed, moved to Shechem and his brothers, and he gained the confidence of the leading citizens of Shechem. And during the annual harvest festival at Shechem, held in the temple of the local god, the wine flowed freely, and everyone began to start cursing Abimelech. 28 to 29 says that this is what they were saying. Who is Abimelech? They all shouted. He is not a true son of Shechem. Why should we be his servants? He is merely a son of Gideon, and this Zebul is just merely his deputy. Serve the true sons of Hamor, the founder of Shechem. Why should we serve Abimelech? If I were in charge, I would get rid of Abimelech, and I would say to him, get some soldiers and come out and fight. You see, this is one thing we got to know about this story, is that there was a party, people were drunk, and people began to start saying a few things they shouldn't. You see, the certain things that they began to say was, who is this guy? Does he belong to us? They questioned his leadership decisions. They questioned him as a leader. And they questioned his loyalty to them. You see, this is a big, loaded statement that they all said. They all had plenty of questions, and they also had plenty of liquor in their system. And when the questions came up, they said, I got a solution for this problem. Let's just go ahead and get rid of them. That's exactly what the Word of God says. You see, but these words, and we got to realize about these words that they ended up using. It was just a small little private conversation. A small little innocent conversation. I guarantee that these people weren't even thinking that their little party was going to turn into a big problem. So it ended up leading to great trouble for the people of Israel. And who would have thought that just the words that they were saying was going to create such big problems to the nation? I guarantee you that they would have never imagined that all the things that took place would have stemmed from just somebody just having a little bit of liquor in their system and a small little conversation. You see, church, one thing we got to know that words can cause problems. You see, it can create big problems for ourselves, and it can create bigger problems for others. You see, our mouths can cause more problems than we think, because, as we all know, there are power in words. I ended up seeing this one video where there were two plants, and one plant people were cursing the plant. On the other plant, they were speaking life to that plant, and that plant prospered. The one that they spoke good things over. The one they spoke bad about ended up dying and withering. So there's power in words, and there's scientific facts to prove it. Now, they ended up doing that experiment in a school to be able to show the kids, don't speak anything bad to people, because deep down inside, you're gonna cause something to die inside of them. That's the reason why, and I believe that if society is learning that, I believe that the church needs to learn that as well. You know, who would have thought that these guys were going to have such big problems? Did you know that the words that you speak, they no longer become yours, but they become the owners, the hearers become the owners of those words, and they get to do whatever they want with those words? So you can't say, oh, I didn't mean that, but you said it.
Right.
One thing I learned about being arrested a lot was that they would always read me my rights. And it would say, you have the right to remain silent. Anything that you say will be held against you in the court of law. So that means that the words that I speak, they might come back to haunt me. Because you have this man or this woman who's arresting me, and they're letting me know anything you say is going to be held against you. And you might say it now, and if you go to trial 2 years from now, the same conversation you had here is going to come back and haunt you. And it's going to decide either if you're guilty or you're not guilty. Because they grabbed my words, put it on a paper, and they're going to present it before a jury. See what happens? And these people, you're going to see that this is what Zebul did with the words of the people that ended up speaking at that party. Then Zebul, the leader of the city, heard what God was saying, and he became furious. And this is what he did with the words. He sent messengers to Abimelech, telling him exactly what the people said. Gaal, the son of Ebed, and his brothers have come to live in Shechem, and now they're enticing the city to rebel against you. You see, that's the perfect example. You say something, somebody grabs your words, and they send it to somebody else. And words, remember that the person who hears the words becomes the owner of those words, and they get to do whatever they want with their words. Remember that. Words are like a boomerang. The words that go out, they're going to come back, and if you're not ready to receive them, they just might hit you across the head. That's what happens with the boomerang. You see, there's people that get affected when we begin to start saying something. Not only do the people that hear it get affected, but the person who said it can also be affected. And as I gave you the analogy earlier about the words coming back to haunt me of what I said to the police officer, that can happen. See, church, one thing we need to do is we need to learn how to take ownership over the words that we speak and accept the responsibility of our words as well. Because guess where the words came out of? Directly out of our mouths. And there's got to be times where the Lord says, hey, watch your mouth. Do you believe that the Lord tells me that? Yeah. The Lord says, watch your mouth, man, because guess what? Those words that are coming out, they're no longer yours, and you need to be careful with them. So just know that the Lord's working on Pastor's heart as well. And I know that if those words get out, somebody misinterprets them, well, guess what? I'm going to need to learn how to control my mouth. Because the thing about words, and using the analogy of a boomerang, is that if I say something, when that subject is brought up, my name's going to be brought up as well. And that's one thing that we need to know, is that when we say something, our words are going to be attached to there, and guess what? People are going to have the right to interpret it any which way they want to. Because it isn't about what you say, it's about what people hear.
Mm-hmm.
See, Abimelech heard the people say this. He heard them say this. Who is this leader? Who is this so-called king? Why should we listen to him? You know what? Why don't we go ahead and start a war and get rid of him? So immediately he was just threatened. And guess what? Abimelech turned around and said, I'm not going to let those people push me around like that. I'm not no pushover. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab my army and I'm going to go and destroy the people. And the kind of army that he had, there were ruthless criminals, and they had enough. Their conscience was so seared that they had no problem setting people alive and on fire. Their words had their consequences. So that's the reason why we need to be careful with the words that we speak. Because the words might get the speaker into more problems than they think. Let me share with you something that Jesus told the disciples. Now remember, the disciples were going to be the direct representatives of the message of God's salvation. So Jesus was preparing them for the ministry and saying, be careful what you say, because you're the leaders of the church and you're the representatives of my kingdom, and everything you say is going to have your name attached to it, and it's going to have my kingdom attached to it. So he was warning them, be careful what you say. He says, whatever you have said in the dark is going to be heard in the light, and whatever you whispered behind closed doors, it will be shouted from rooftops for all to hear. And we need to know, church, that the things that we say, people are going to hear it. And guess what? Our names are going to be attached to those words. Because then they're going to say, oh, I heard this statement. Oh, well, who said it? Oh, this person said it. It's the process of gaining information. Jesus' warning to the disciples said that whatever you say in public, guess what? Whatever you say in private is eventually going to be heard in public. So we need to be careful because the words that we say can get out and others will hear it. And guess what? You cannot erase your name and you can't undo the words that you said. You might try to rephrase it and say that's not what I meant, but the person is going to receive it however they want to. And they're going to be able to share it however they want to. One thing that they taught me in it was a seventh grade science class, where they were giving this analogy on how how certain phrases can be distorted. And there was 7 kids up front. The teacher told one kid the statement, and there were 7 kids, and the word over here, the teacher asked, "What did you hear?" I didn't get it during that time, but little did I know that I was going to be using it today. But she was showing me that what's said here can travel through here, and whatever is said over here could be completely different than what was said in the beginning. And if this kid would say, "What you hear," she would say it, and then who did it begin with? It began with the teacher and ended up over here, and the phrase may have changed, but the person who started it, their name does not change. So we got to know that every war starts with words. Now, another thing we need to know about war is that war has a plan. Judges chapter 9, verse 3 to 2. Zebul said, "Come by night with an army and hide out in the fields in the morning, and as soon as it is daylight, attack the city. When Gaul and those who were with him come out against you, you can do with them whatever you wish." So the war was going to be on, and the plan was travel by night, wake up, and first thing in the morning when they open up the city gates, run in and take the city. That was their plan. See, it was every war has a plan, and it's got to have a plan. Like I said a few weeks ago, proper planning prevents probable problems. So it says, we're going to go, and in that process, you're asking these questions. What are we going to do? When are we going to attack? What our weapons are going to be? Where are the people going to be at? And how are we going to get it done? And the only thing is that when you go to war, you don't know when the war is going to end. We got to know one thing about the war is that there was only a certain group that knew about the war. And that was the people who were going to start it. While the other people were going to get attacked, they weren't even aware that the attack was coming. So this was a planned sneak attack that was going to take place upon people who just decided to get drunk and just say whatever they wanted to. So little did they know that word traveled fast, and now they were going to get attacked. See, we need to know, church, that war has already been declared. And it's been declared upon us, the church. Once you became a Christian, the war is on. Because the devil wants to kill, steal, kill, and destroy the things that God is ready to do within your life. You see, he wants to keep you bound. He doesn't want you to experience the freedom that God is able to give to his people. So the war is on. And it is very real. And just because you don't feel the war going on, it does not mean that the war is not going on. Because the war that we are in, the leader is sneaky, he's intelligent, and he is invisible, which means he cannot be seen. And the way that he does his plan to destroy the things of God is to lead people through deception. These people had the sneak attack, and their sneak attack was going to be, we're going to go there, once they open up the gates, we're rushing in and we're taking the city. The devil, he deceives people. That's what he does. And I want to let you guys know that this about the battle is one thing that God showed me was this, that just because, some people say, I'm in a battle because things are really going wrong. You're in a battle in spite of things going, if things are going right or wrong.
Yes.
So you got to be aware of that, because the devil wants you to think, oh, it's okay, I'm not bugging you. But he could be whispering in your ear. He could be doing that. You know, he might not be grabbing all this stuff and flipping it all around and messing with this family member, messing with that family member, inspiring your boss to treat you wrong, or your car's acting up. It's in those moments where things are going right, where the biggest attack that the enemy tries to place within our lives is complacency. Because we could turn around and say, everything's fine, I don't have to read my Bible today, I don't have to go to church anymore, I don't have to pray, because guess what? I'm enjoying the victory. God is the source of our victory, and we need to stay connected with Him, because because complacency is there to rob us from the victories that God has in store.
Amen. Amen.
So remember that. And remember, as I do this, it's not a scolding, I'm just passionate about this. I'm just passionate about this stuff. So I'm not up here, I don't want you guys to think I'm scolding you guys. I'm passionate about this stuff. Because the devil is real.
Yes.
He is real. So we need to remember, church, that we need to be careful with complacency. We need to be aware that the devil is sneaky, he's intelligent, and we may not see him, and he wants to deceive us all. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, we all know this scripture. Be alert, be sober-minded, for the enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking whom he may want to devour. One thing I've noticed when I watch how lions attack, they watch from a distance, they pay close attention, they follow their prey for a long time, and they choose the right time to attack. And the prey doesn't even know that they've been followed for such a long time. The only time that they know that the lion is out is when they just hear a big thunder coming out of the bushes, and they're looking around, and the prey has locked eyes with the lion. And they know and say, I don't want to be this guy's lunch, so I better run. Because he's hungry. He is hungry. So we need to be aware, church, that there's a devil out there. He has a sneak attack. And he's ready to devour you. So please, church, be aware of that. I got a few questions for you. And remember that his plan is deception. Can I ask you something? How alert are you to the devil's tactics and tricks in your mind and in your heart? Are you sober when you make an honest evaluation on judgments and reasoning when it comes down to the things of God, His people, and His leaders? See, the thing about being sober is that you don't have nothing influencing you in your mind or in your emotions. You're completely focused, and there's nothing there to deter your decision-making skills. So right here, we're being warned. Be sober. Don't let nothing that the devil is trying to build within your mind or your heart influence the decisions that you're making and the judgments that you're making and your reasoning as well. One thing I like about being alert is that I try my best to be alert. When I talk to people, I've had somebody talk to me and say, hey, the kind of looks you give to people when they're talking, they're not always the very nicest ones. You know, you got to smile from time to time. And then I took that in and I started thinking about it. I was like, man, And then he asked me, he goes, do you have a hearing problem? And I was like, you know what? That's what it is. I got a hearing problem. Yeah. So if you're talking to a pastor and pastor's giving you these weird looks, pastor's just paying very close attention to what you're saying, and he has a hearing problem. Okay? So just remember that. And the devil wants you to think, oh, pastor doesn't like me. He's grinning at me. Oh, he doesn't like me. He doesn't like what I say. What he's saying is rubbing off on him. You see how the devil wants to trick me, get me into trouble? So just know, if I'm talking, it's nothing personal. If you're talking to me and my face changes, I'm just paying close attention to you. And thank God that you got a pastor that listens. Amen?
Yeah.
So you see, I put in my whole effort to listen to what people are saying, because I want to pay close attention to what I can do to help that person. You see, one thing we got to know is that the devil is very crafty. He's intelligent, and he's very crafty. You know how crafty he was? That even while he was in heaven, he ended up convincing a third of the angels to leave God's glory and to rebel against God. We haven't been to heaven. Sometimes we might feel in this place like we are. Doing a good job, Chicky. Worship was so electrifying, I had to take off my sweatshirt. So one thing we gotta know is that the devil was crafty enough to lead a rebellion in heaven against God himself. And he convinced a third of his angels who saw the glory of God, who were living in the presence of God, who saw things that one day we're going to see, and they said, nah, this isn't good enough. Let's listen to the devil, and let's go ahead and start our own kingdom. And they rebelled against God, and God kicked them out of their kingdom. You see, he's the king of deceptions, and we need to be aware that we can fall into deception no matter how long we've been a Christian.
Yes.
You might be turning around and saying, there's no way I could fall into deception. God is the center of life. His Spirit lives within me. I read His Word every day. I go to church. I'm incapable of being deceived. Well, did you know that that statement is already
Yes.
mentioning that you are deceived?
Yes.
Because you're saying, oh, I know it all. On Wednesday night, we're talking about this Bible. We're doing this Bible study where it's talking about learning how to listen to God even when we don't want to listen to Him.
Yeah.
So I would challenge you, come and join us on a Wednesday night. So you might be turning around and saying, I can't fall into deception. Jesus is the center of my life. It's impossible for me to fall into deception. Well, you tell that to the angels who were standing in the presence of God, and now they're condemned to hell. See, the devil is so crafty, and he wants to go after the people so bad that he doesn't care who he goes after to try to deceive. Because let me tell you, this dude had enough boldness to go up to Jesus himself, to God himself, and try to deceive him. So if you think that there's like this bubble around you and the devil can't get in to deceive you, then you need to be aware that the devil can deceive you. Because he went after Jesus himself. Whoop. Where'd it go? Whoop. I guess it didn't. Whoop. Let's try this. There it is. The devil went right after Jesus. And guess who led Jesus? The Spirit of God led him into the wilderness. And guess what? He was tempted. So if he went after Jesus, do you think he'll be able to go after you? You better believe it. You better believe it. He will come after you. God is not, we've heard in the Bible say that God is not the respecter of persons. Well, let me tell you what. The devil is not a respecter of persons as well. He wants to deceive people. He wants to keep them in deception. And our responsibility is to be aware that the devil wants to deceive us. Because guess what? That's his plan. He wants to give you a false vision of who God is. He wants to give you a false vision on what God is doing. He's the king of deception, folks. I'm just exposing him. That's all I'm doing. Now, let me see here. Here it is. So what's the devil's plan? Okay, so his plan is to deceive. I said that earlier. I went back too far. Okay, so 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1 and 4 says, "Know this, that in the last days perilous times are going to come." Jesus made this statement to the disciples and said, at the last days, there's going to be a great falling away. And not only is there going to be a great falling away, but people are going to be deceived in the last days. Deception is going to run rampant, folks. And the devil is going to work hard because he knows that his time is coming up. And if we think that we're incapable of being deceived, and that we're not going to be able to fall into that category of being deceived or to fall away, well, let me tell you something. Pride goes before a fall. And the main thing is that we need to remain humble enough to say, God, I don't want to be deceived. I don't want to be deceived. I don't want to be deceived. I don't want to make bad choices. And church, I want to let you know that I come before God. And I say, God, I need your help. I don't want to be deceived. Because guess what? If I'm deceived, it's going to pass over here. So it's my responsibility to make sure to guard my heart from deception. If there's pain, I want to make sure that I guard my heart from, that I let God heal that pain. Because if I have that pain, I'm not going to be using this pulpit as a place to vent. Because this place has not been used as a place to vent. It has been used to build the kingdom of God.
Amen. Yes.
Amen.
So, we're up here. Okay, so 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 3 says, "Know this, that in the last days times are going to come. Traitors, heedy, high-minded, those who know it all, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God." Does that mean that lovers of pleasure, I want to clarify that statement, because the lovers of pleasures more than the lovers of God, did you know that those people can be found in the house of God? Yeah, they can be found in the house of God. Because remember that this letter that Peter sent, it was for the church.
Amen.
So he was saying, church, look what's going to happen. There might be some people inside that might be thinking that they know it all, that they love more things of the world than they love God. And guess what? Even the people in the church can have a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, and such they turn away. So some of you guys know that I've been in prison. One thing you guys may not know about me being in prison is that I've met people who were serving God out here and ended up in prison.
Yes.
And they were guilty of something. I heard a guy say, you got to remember things about prisoners. They're not in jail because they were singing too loud in a choir. They're guilty of something. So one thing we got to know, church, is I've seen people there. People have said, I'm incapable of being deceived. And they got deceived and they fell into big trouble. Yeah. I want to let you know, church, that I've learned how to guard. I've learned to guard the calling that God has over my life, and making sure that I don't surround myself with people who are contrary to what I believe in. Can God use me to reach sinners? Yes. But there are some people that I came across in my life who are so-called Christians that I wouldn't want to be around them because not because of their personality, but the way that they look at grace is a distorted way. And I stayed away from those people.
Yes.
And those people have let that person turned around because he thought he knew it all. He decided one day that he was going to sue the church. And the sad story about it is that he thought he knew it all. He didn't see his deception. Nobody could talk to him. He had his kids stripped away from him. His wife died, and now he's in jail. And he's not a little bit, he's just a little bit older than me. Deception is very real, church.
Yes.
It is real.
Yes.
And the devil wants to cause his people to be. He wants to cause his people, he wants to cause God's people to live in deception. Because guess what? We're his prize. He knows that we are able to pray and move mountains.
Amen.
He knows that at the name of that if we're walking with God in a life of integrity, if we're walking in a life that is honorably before God, then the power of God is going to come upon us that is going to cause his kingdom to crumble. And he doesn't want that. That's why he wants to get people deceived. I mean, look at Paul the Apostle. This guy actually thought he was doing the right thing for God, to the point where he was going around killing Christians. And he thought he was serving God. What deception. I mean, his name was Saul, and he was going around, and he took it upon himself and says, I'm going to go around and I'm going to kill Christians. Then God ended up getting a hold of his life and said, you think you're serving God, but you're really combating against my kingdom. He goes, now I'm going to use you to show you how it is to live in my kingdom. And I'm going to change your name, and I'm going to make you the head of the church. You see, there's going to be some times, church, where we think we're doing the right thing, but we're doing the wrong thing. And that's when we need God to come in and to get our attention and to set us straight.
Amen. Amen.
Because the devil wants to deceive his people. So you might be saying, could the devil do whatever he wants with me if I'm deceived? Yeah. If you're deceived, he could cause you to do whatever, he could cause you to do whatever you want, whatever he wants. Because the Bible says that God hands over the people to a reprobated mind, causing them to live in an illusion. And if they are not listening to God, then God just surrenders them to their thinking. And could you believe that some of those people sometimes still hang around in the church? Not this church, but not this church, okay? Not this church, but in the church. Could you believe that?
Yes.
Yeah, it can happen. It can happen. It can happen. And let me tell you something. One thing I learned is that God is going to move in such a mighty way in this place where I got to make sure that I don't leave my guard down to the point where when something takes place, that I'm going to be aware of the situation and I'm going to take care of that situation and not go complacent.
Amen.
Because the devil wants me to think, oh, this is not going to happen. Oh, devil, I'm not going to let my guard down because guess what?
Right.
That person's going to get a breakthrough.
Right. Amen.
So it's my responsibility to listen to God. And it is also your responsibility to listen to God.
Yes.
And not only, and I challenge you, filter the thoughts that are going through your head with the Word of God. Not about what somebody says, not what somebody's feeling, not saying, well, this person said it, therefore I'm going to believe it. Because guess what? I've learned to turn off certain ministers that come out on the radio because I just don't agree with what they're saying sometimes. So you got to make sure that it comes directly, church, from the Word of God.
Amen.
Because God's
Yes.
Word is a lamp unto your feet, and it's going to light up the path that God wants you to go on.
Yes.
There was a testimony. Guys, if you guys didn't go to the men's conference, you guys missed out. Because we came across a guy who he was serving God, he walked away from God, and after he walked away from God, he found himself in a jail cell, and the devil had his mind so tied up to the point where he heard the devil say, pluck your eyes out, or if not, you're going to see hell. And because he was so deceived, he grabbed his his finger, pulled his eye out, and guess what the devil said? You idiot, why'd you do that for? Because of deception. Because of deception. But did you know that God turned his whole life around? He's in a recovery. He graduated a recovery program. He's set free. And he's sharing the word of God. Because guess what? He was blind, but he sees. That's why we need to learn how to guard ourselves from deception. You can't serve two masters. That man tried serving two masters and it didn't work. And the enemy deceived him saying, hey, the enemy deceived him saying it like this. You're doing everything. You're being overlooked. And he believed it and he turned to drinking, and that's how he ended up in that place. That's the reason why we can't grow complacent, folks. Now, we got to know this about war. Okay, I'll skip that. Okay, so every war has its plan. Okay, I'll skip that. I think I already talked about that. Okay, so one thing we got to know about the war is that every war has a surprise attack. That's the reason why I keep on saying, be careful, don't grow complacent. Because remember, the lion stays behind the high weeds, and whenever he gets hungry, it's time to attack and he goes after it. So Abimelech and all his men went by night, and they split into 4 groups, stationing themselves around Shechem. Gaul was standing at the city gates when Abimelech and his army came out of hiding. So what it's saying here, church, is that there was a surprise attack. The other people didn't even know that the attack was going to take place. They thought it was just going to be a normal day. So they opened up the city gates, and guess what? They knew the clue. Once the city gates open up, you rush in and you take the city. It was a surprise attack. The other people just thought it was a normal day. And when they opened up the door to the city, the enemy walked right in. And let me tell you something. If they would have known that the enemy was going to come in that day, they would have never opened up those doors. So what we got to know, church, is that the enemy wants to have a sneak attack in store. And that's the reason why we need to be careful of not falling complacent. You see, they just thought it was a regular day. Could there be times in your life where you could just simply say, this is just a regular day. I'm going to go about my day, and I'm just going to go do whatever I feel like I just need to do. You can't do that, church. I want to let you know that you need to draw to God.
Yes.
And you have to say, God, I need you. It even got to the point where I'm waking up at 5:30 in the morning now. Because I'm saying, God, I need you. And I'm not going to let anything get in my way between my responsibilities that I need to do before you. I could simply say, yeah, I got a busy day. Anybody could have a busy day. But my days and your days, they're not normal days.
No.
They're amazing days. When you live for God, they're amazing days.
Yes.
Remember that.
Amen.
And you got to learn how to protect it. Protect those days. Because guess what? The devil is crafty, he's intelligent, and guess what? He is patient. Because he could even deceive you and say, hey, oh, he thinks about letting his guard down? Okay, I won't bother him today. And then the next day you wake up and he whispers in your ear, wasn't yesterday an amazing day? Do you really need to seek God? And then guess what happens? Hey, yeah, yesterday was great. Do I really need to seek God? You know what? I don't think so. And you start living off of yesterday's victory, and then he comes again, and he tells you the same thing, and you just listen to him, and you just listen to him, and you just listen to him, and then you find yourself in a situation where it's tough to get out.
Yeah.
And you're saying, man, I really wish I would have listened to God, and I would have kept my relationship going with him. We are led by the Spirit of God, but it doesn't mean we can't commune with the Spirit of God. Amen? You see, church, I want to let you know something. That in the last few days, Pastor's been going through something very real. And could you believe that I even thought in my heart that I was in the right? I got to the point where I was thinking, I'm right, everybody's wrong. Then all these wild thoughts started coming through my head, and I was like, whoa, this is not normal. Even my wife had to say, hey, there's something wrong going on here, Vaughn. And it kind of like caused me to simply just say, what is going on in here? Because what's going on in here is affecting this, and it's affecting this. Not the church, but anything that's in front of me is getting affected. And I started realizing that there was some unforgiveness in my heart that I needed to let go of. And the only reason why I was acting like that was because that's the only way that I was shown. And then I asked God, I said, God, this is not normal. Something is wrong. And when I was here on Monday night prayer, I was just walking around and I said, God, I don't know what's going on, but there's something going on in my mind and I needed to change. And did you know that when I confessed that to God, I got my breakthrough?
Yes.
Because what I had a vision of, I had a vision that there was this big thing of butter over my head, and God was touching it and it was melting. Like if there was like a cloud over my head, and God just removed it. And all that could have, and I could have just simply just said, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. But that's deception saying that I'm okay. But I had to get before God and I said, God, there's something wrong. I don't want to be deceived. I need something to change. And when it, and my problem turned into my breakthrough. You see, church, we could make excuses for the way that we're doing things. We could make excuses. I'm not going to go through the excuses because there's a lot of them. But all of us could make an excuse for something. But there's got to be a time in our lives where we just get real with God and allow Him to give us the breakthrough when we get rid of the excuses. So how can you get a breakthrough? We need to learn how to examine our hearts and ask God a simple question. Have I heard some words that were not sent from you that caused me to be deceived? Have I fell into a trap that the devil has set for me to step into? Have I let my guard down on the war that rages on my soul, my family, and the plan that you have for my life? God, have I fell into deception? During this time, we're just going to go ahead and get prepared for communion. And Cheeky and Shirley, go ahead and come on. We're going to sing the song, Lord, I Need You. That song is amazing. Could you get the songs for Lord I Need You? Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Josh. You know, in order for us to keep us from being deceived, we need God more than anything. We need God more than anything. Because God is not going to lead us astray. God's going to keep us in track with His plan. And He knows the thoughts that He has for our lives, and they are good. Psalms 39, 1/3, I got it from here, Josh, on the scriptures. Psalms 139, verse 23 through 24 says, Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. And point out anything that offends you. And lead me to the path of everlasting. King David was one of the greatest kings that has ever come to and he had to come to the realization that deception was real, and it could have came into his heart. And he was asking God, God, put a flashlight in my heart, look to see if there's anything, God, that offends you. Can I ask you, when was the last time that you allowed God to enter into your heart and just put a flashlight in it and go look for something that's not pleasing to Him? last time that you actually asked God, God, I need you to come and examine my thinking? When was the last time that you have asked God, God, come and examine my heart? David realized that deception could lead him down the wrong path to the point that he had to let God know. And if deception has came into our heart, we need to learn how to be real with God and say, God, I've been deceived and I need something to change. So those that are going to be practicing, who are going to be serving communion, if you could have you guys come up to the front, please. I believe it was Art, it was Connie and Carlos. And it was also,
Jerry?
Jerry. Art, come on up. Carlos, come on up. So let this just be a time where you just look deep down in your heart and say, God, could I have been deceived in some kind of way? Could I have been deceived in some kind of way? Because deception is real, folks. And this is going to be a time where we're going to be able to examine our lives before God and really ask God, God, have I been deceived in some kind of way? The Bible says that we should examine our hearts before we partake of this meal, unless judgment falls upon us. So I would ask you, if there's deception that you need to ask God to forgive you of, He's faithful and just to forgive you. If there's a flashlight that you need to put into your heart and into your mind to examine it, I challenge you, allow God to do it. Go ahead and listen.
Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest, and without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me.
already been served? Wonderful. We're challenged within the Word of God to renew our minds daily before God. Because the devil is crafty, he's the author of deception, and we need to learn how to guard our hearts from that. Let's just go ahead and just take a moment to just ask the Lord to examine our hearts one more time. Father, I pray, God, that, Lord, you would put a flashlight on all of our hearts, God. And to show, God, if there's anything, God, that we've lived in deception in. And God, if we've been deceived, we apologize. We apologize, God, but we also ask, God, that, Lord, we would be challenged within our hearts to guard our mind, our hearts, and our actions, Father God, from deception. Make us aware, God, that there's a devil, God, that wants to destroy our lives and wants to destroy your kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. God, and we thank you for the broken body, God, that was broken for our healing and our restoration. And we thank you for that. You may take the bread. And God, we thank you so much, God, for the cup, which is the representation of the covenant that you have made to this earth to rescue the souls of man, for those that would choose to receive you as Lord and Savior. So, Lord, we thank you for the cup. We thank you for the sacrifice. In Jesus' name. Amen. You may take it. Let's just celebrate God's goodness for his redemption power, for his healing, and for his teaching as well. Thank you, for your great. You are great, God. You are great. There is none like you. None like you, God. You are incomparable. God, and I pray that you would guard our minds, God, from what the enemy is trying to do within our families, God, within our lives, God. Let the fire of God come upon us, Father God, like never before, Father God. And I pray that you would make us aware, Father God, of the tricks of the devil, Father God. Because, Lord, his plan is not changed to steal, kill, and to destroy, Father God. Lord, let us draw near to you, Father God. Let us resist the devil, God, so that he can flee out of our lives, out of our minds, and out of our emotions, Father God. Lord, we thank you for the things that you're doing. We thank you for the building up, God, that you're doing in this place. In Jesus' name, amen. You are excused.